Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Donna from AskTheRadTech.com, and I help take you from the classroom to the X-ray room with ease. Filming some videos back to back, and this is the second one. The AP pelvis, tips, tricks, positioning, that kind of thing.
I'm in need of an X-ray, 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 X-ray.
So I'm gonna run through the positioning, well, the basic setup, not the positioning yet, but the setup. So you have a patient coming into the department, maybe they want to check for osteoarthritis, patient getting hip pain, whatever the case is, right? Maybe they fell and need to see the hip. But let's just go with a basic routine AP pelvis, right? That's what they asked for. So with the AP pelvis, the patient is going to be supine. You're going to have your 14x17 image receptor placed crosswise, because just think about the hips, like usually it's wider, you don't need much length, right? You need the width to accommodate for the size of that area of the patient, right? No matter the patient, crosswise is generally the way to go. Unless it's a little baby and you just want to have room, then it doesn't really matter. But for the average adult or a bigger child, you have it crosswise. That's the standard, that's the textbook position for the cassette in an AP pelvis X-ray. So you have, wow, everybody was in home this hour and drying and fast. Right, so you have your cassettes and everything in bucky, right? You're not doing outer bucky because it's a big part. You will have more X-rays that you need to produce, more MAS, more KVP. So you want to have it in bucky so that you can afford to have the grid to filter out those low energy photons. That's another thing down. We have our grid, we have our cassette in there. We want to set our tube to the center of that. We want to detent the tube or lock the tube into its place so we know it's centered to the cassette. And we want to set our source to image distance, or our SID, to 40 inches, 40 inches, right? That's the standard. Of course, you might have to shift it aside so the patient could come and lie down, because it's a supine image, the patient would be lying down, right? So I have the patient lying down, and I'm gonna have a little pop-up video of me literally showing my hips. I'm wearing pants, obviously. I'm not gonna bear it all on YouTube or bear it all for anybody just like that, right? But I'm giving you all a general idea. Now the positioning for a hip, you need the patient to obviously be supine, lying down flat on their back. You want them to separate the legs slightly and then let them roll the hips inward. In order to do so, don't tell the patient to just to touch their toes, because their feet, y'all cannot even show this.
Yo, this is ridiculous. Their feet will literally do this. Maybe they might turn the ankle a bit, but you see the knee? The knee?
The knee is what you want them to turn, right? You want them to turn at the knee, because obviously when you turn the knee, you turn the femur. If you turn the femur, you turn the hip, right? So you ask them to separate the legs a bit. Just about shoulder width apart should be sufficient, and turn the knees inward to face each other. When they do that, they get a proper rotation of the femur, where the lesser trochanter would no longer be in profile and it would have the greater trochanter in profile on the sides, right? That's the important thing there, proper positioning, right? Now when you have that in order, now you can probably tell them to do this last, because you don't want them to just be awkwardly twist up like that. You can always say after your center and everything, then you tell them to turn it inwards, just for comfort's sake. Anyway, so after you sort out that section, you want to make sure you center your stuff properly. For the AP pelvis, you want to include the top of the crest and below, or just a little bit below, maybe a couple inches or so, below the lesser trochanter region, right? So you want to have sufficient amount of hip included. The entire pelvis, nice and rounded. You get from about, let's say, half a L3 or like L4. Make sure you, of course, you get the top of your crest and down to past the lesser trochanter. The ASIS is palpable as well. It's that bony projection that you feel to the front of the body or to the side laterally, right? It's easy to feel, no matter the size of the patient. Just press a little bit and you'll feel it. Some patients you don't even need to press because they are much, much slimmer. You'll just see it on them, right? It's easy to see. Even with larger, or as my past lecturer used to say, more gracious patients, you'll be able to feel, the ASIS projection, because it's pretty surface. And when most people carry their weight, it's not on the hip itself. It's usually belly that might overlap. So you can just gently shift a little and press and you'll feel the ASIS. So for the AP pelvis, the centering point is midway between the ASIS and the symph, right? Once you find your ASIS point and the point of the symph, which both are palpable, you are then going to imagine that you have an imaginary line there, and you find the centermost point at that, and you center there, and of course your mid-sagittal towards the midline of the body. And that's your AP pelvis, right? Showing my demonstration from my hip, and this is so awkward because children passing. Right, so you have the ASIS here, you have the symph here, which is palpable. Draw an imaginary line across here, which is right below the navel most times. Here, and this is the midline, this is the centering for the hip. When you're centering, after you center and everything is good, to double check, but this is what I do, right? This is a little tip if you're really unsure. Remember, some patients, you might find a little trouble to palpate. That's normal. You're gonna feel at the side of the patient, because they'll be lying down, you can tell them to breathe in. It brings the diaphragm up, and it usually lets the belly area flatten a bit, right? Breathe in, and you don't even have to breathe in some cases, but if you find you get in trouble, ask them to breathe in, right? And then you palpate, or you just squeeze along the side gently to feel for the lower costal margin, and that's the area where the ribs on the side ends, right? Where you feel the last of the rib on the side, and you, not literally the last rib, but the last rib on that curvature, because remember the shorter ribs at the end, you're not studying that, right? The last rib on the side is the lower costal margin that you could feel. Once you have that lower costal margin on, you don't even have to worry about if your crest on, because if you could feel that lower costal margin at the uppermost border, you just open the drawer and look at the top of the cassette, the anterior border of the cassette, you know for sure that the crest on, right? So when I finish position my patients, I always open the drawer, look, see that it line up in the area, see that we safely pass the symph for a few inches, and I know that all my anatomy is on the image. So that's a big tip. Please do it. This is my lower costal margin here, and right below that, because I have a short abdomen compared to the, well, I have a short torso in general, right? So there's my lower costal margin. And right below that, not even an inch or just about an inch, I could feel for my crest. So yeah, once you have the lower costal margin on, your crest is there, right? ASIS, work my way around, symph, center point right here. So it'll be about that till about right there past the symph. So yes, ensure that you have a really good SID. No less than 40, please, because the shorter your SID, the more magnification you have. And obviously then, if you're really, really close or the patient is really big and have a large pelvis, and when I say big, I'm talking about the bone, right, it's really big, then you would likely cut off some anatomy, and you don't want that. Right, so once you center up and you have everything in order, then you're good to go. That's about it for the AP pelvis, right? I hope that this was helpful, and I think it was anyway. And I'll see you all in the next video. In the next video, I'm gonna film right after this. I'm gonna talk about the lateral hips. Some students find trouble with that. I, as a student, had trouble with it until the end. You know, obviously with practice, you get to learn different things that would help you. And I learned some things that makes centering for the lateral hip, no matter the size of the patient, much easier. And with the average size patient, you would actually find that doing the lateral hip on a 10-12 actually isn't that bad. And I mean, that's the standard, right, on a 10-12. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let me get to filming that next video. Bye!